First graders, happy Tuesday. I'm going to jump right into the last chapter of our book, Stackifying. With Karen safely rescued from the bearded man's house, the possibility of eating a whole bunch of those delicious smelling frankfurters was now at the forefront of all their minds. From the corner of the house, the five dogs waited and waited for Peter. For Peter to turn his head in the other direction so they could sprint to the remaining sheet on the line and hide behind it. "I'm not going alone this time," Karen declared. "No way." "We'll all go together," Stick Dog agreed. "We just have to wait for Peter to turn the other way." "Do you like waiting?" "Not me. In fact, I think waiting is one of the worst things in the entire world. If I have to wait for something, like in the grocery line, or at the doctor's office, or to fall asleep at night when I'm really, really not tired, and there is no reason in the world why I should have to go to bed so early, and life is so incredibly unfair that I could just scream, then I try to occupy my mind with something else. I maybe count to 1,056 by sixes, or try to name 22 flavors of ice cream. Do you know what my favorite flavor is? You're not going to believe this. It's vanilla. The most boring flavor of all. Now, that doesn't mean I'm boring, okay? In fact, I can prove how not boring I am. Yesterday, I fell up the stairs. That's right, up. Anybody can fall down the stairs, but not too many can fall up like me. That is definitely not boring. It's painful. It's a little embarrassing, but it's not boring. Anyway, I don't like waiting. Yuck. You know the worst waiting thing of all time? Waiting to get a really exciting conclusion of a story. Yeah, that's terrible, right? Yeah. Back to the story. Finally, Peter turned his head, and when he did, all five dogs sprinted to where the laundry was hanging from the clothesline in the yard of the blue house. They skidded to a stop behind the sheet, where they couldn't be seen. But there was a problem. The sheet was hanging almost all the way to the ground. They couldn't see Peter from under it, and it was flapping in the wind just enough that they might be seen along either side of it if they tried to peek out that way. "How are we going to tell if he's turned his head again so we can go grab the frankfurters?" asked Mutt. It was a very good question, and Stick Dog did not have an immediate answer, but Poo Poo did. First, he explained their situation. "Look," he said, "we can't see under this big clothes thing because it's hanging down to the ground, and we can't see around either side because the wind is flapping it all over the place, and we're going to get spotted. There's only one thing to do. We have to look over it." "Great idea," said Karen. Then with all her mighty dachshund strength, she began jumping up and down to try to see over the top of the sheet. There was, of course, only one problem. Karen could only jump several inches off the ground. She stopped after a few more attempts, realizing that it was absolutely useless. "But how?" "We climb on top of each other until we can see over the top," said Mutt. All the dogs nodded their heads with great enthusiasm at hearing the suggestion, except for Stick Dog. "No way," was all he said. "Why not?" asked Poo Poo. "We'll never keep our balance. We'll fall down all over the place and break our legs and tails. It will be a mess, a total mess." "Oh," said Stripes sort of quietly and knowingly. Sorry, just lowered my chair. "I see what's going on here." "What?" sighed Stick Dog. His stomach was beginning to hurt a little. He wanted to taste one of those frankfurters. "What do you think is going on here?" "I think that you don't like this idea because it's not your idea," said Stripes. "We all went along with your idea about running over here and hiding behind this square, flappy, soft whatchamacallit. But now that we have an idea or two, you become The mister always says no to everything he ever hears, man. That's not... Stick Dog began, but he realized he was too late. All the other dogs were nodding along with Stripes. Yeah, come on, Stick Dog, said Mutt. We all went along with your plan. And now you can go along with ours. Yeah, come on, said Karen and Poo Poo. Stick Dog wanted those Frankfurters. He wanted them badly, even if it meant 4 dogs were going to be falling all over him and breaking his legs and tail. Oh, all right. Hooray! The other 4 dogs exclaimed. And with that, they started climbing up all over each other. There was not much organization or thought behind the process. And Stick Dog had given up trying to convince them of the proper way to do it. With the biggest dog at the bottom and the smallest on top, instead they just started bashing together and climbing and falling and climbing and falling and climbing and falling. They all got tangled up and then untangled themselves and then got all tangled up again. One time, Stripes asked, "Whose tail is in my mouth?" Stick Dog looked back over his shoulder to look at Stripes to see whose tail was in her mouth. When he saw the answer, he said, "It's yours, Stripes, your own tail. It's your own tail." It's not. Yes, it is. I would know my own tail, wouldn't I? You would think so, yes. So then it's not my tail. Try this, suggested Poo Poo, overhearing the conversation. Bite down a little bit. Okay, said Stripes, and she bit down. She then yelped and winced at her pain in her own tail and then quickly knocked down the entire stack of dogs again. This is kind of an example of how things went for about 10 minutes or so. After much strenuous effort, the dogs finally got stacked up, and thankfully, Karen was on top. She was the smallest, and it worked out nice that way. So now it was time for Karen to take a peek over the top of the sheet and see when Peter, the Frankfurter man, turned his head in the other direction. When he did, they could de-stackify themselves, run to the cart, grab the Frankfurters, and hightail it back to Stick Dog's pipe for the feast. One problem. It didn't work out that way. Instead, here's what happened. Karen raised her head ever so slightly over the top of that sheet. When she did, she could see what Peter and the Frankfurter man was up to. And you know what he was up to? Nothing. He was just standing there at his Frankfurter cart. He was looking around a little bit, sometimes away from the sheet. The dogs were hiding behind, sometimes toward it, but never directly at it. He never turned all the way around. He leaned down to make sure his shoe was still tied. Then he doubled onto both of his shoelaces. He rang the bell on the cart once. Another time, he kicked a little pebble next to the wheel of his cart. A minute later, he rearranged the ketchup and mustard and salt and pepper, putting them in order from tallest to shortest. Ketchup being the tallest. Then he rearranged them from skinniest to plumpest, ketchup being the skinniest. Well, all this looking around and rearranging of the condiments resulted in 3 things. Number 1, a very tidy Frankfurter cart. Number 2, sorry guys, my phone was telling me that I'm out of storage, so the video stopped. So we left off at number 2. Number 2, a long period of time when Peter didn't quite look away. And number 3, an extremely tired stack of dogs, especially the ones at the bottom. And do you know what happens to an extremely, tired stack of dogs, especially the ones at the bottom? Here's what happens. The stack doesn't stay so solid and straight. It starts to wobble a little. It bends a little bit left, then it bends a little bit right. It sways a little bit forward, and then it sways a little bit backwards. And you know what happens when more time passes and the dogs, especially the ones at the bottom, begin to get even more tired? Well, that's when the swaying and the tilting start to get even worse. And that's exactly what happened. Hold still down there, Karen said. Trying, said Poo Poo. He hasn't looked away yet. Not yet, said Karen. He's moving the mustard again. Stick Dog called up to the bottom of the stack from his position to the bottom. What about Phyllis? Yeah, Mud added, wanting to know too. What about the Frankfurter Assault Squadron? Where are they? They're in the maple tree, Karen observed. It's the only tree away from the cart. In another minute or two, the Frankfurter Assault Squadron is going to be in the next tree. The one with the branches hanging over the cart. They'll be able to drop down and grab everything. Coupled with how tired they were becoming, this news made them all feel discouraged. What about now? Has Peter moved yet? Asked Mutt. My back's killing me. Not as much as my tail, said Stripes. That's because you bit yourself, said Poo Poo. Did not. Yes, you did. We all saw it, right, Stick Dog? Shh, answered Stick Dog with a groan. I just have to get those Frankfurters. I'm so hungry. Is he looking away yet? The 4 other dogs gathered all their strength, inhaled deeply, and concentrated on holding still and keeping the stack steady. They desperately hoped that Karen would answer positively. Karen peeked at Peter again. He was moving all the condiments back to their original positions. Nope, was all she said. At this answer, the stack of dogs began tilting and swaying worse than ever before. It was like all the concentrating energy they used waiting for the final answer from Karen had sapped their remaining strength and stamina. And when they were disappointed with Karen's answer and Peter had not turned away, their remaining energy just evaporated. It was inevitable. The stack was going to fall. Do you know what inevitable means? It means when something is definitely going to happen no matter what. It's like if there's one time you don't know the answer in a math class, then it's inevitable the teacher will call on you. Or it's inevitable it will start pouring rain when you're only one block from your house. Or like if you're Mr. Pernsteiner and you wash your truck, it's inevitable it's going to rain like the next day. Anyway, it was inevitable that the stack of dogs was going to fall. It leaned right, and they shifted all their weight to the left. It leaned left, and they shifted all their weight to the right. They regained an even balance just for a second. Then the whole stack began to lean backwards. And to correct, they all began to lean forward. But this time they leaned too far forward, and when they did, 3 things happened. Number 1, Karen snagged her nose on top of the edge of the sheet. Number 2, the laundry sheet itself came unhooked from the line. Number 3, Stick Dog did everything he could to keep the stack on top of him. He really wanted those Frankfurters, and he started to stagger forward with the 4 dogs moving, jiggling, wiggling, swaying, and stumbling on top of him. Now from the back, it looked like 5 dogs piled on top of each other, all tangled up in a sheet, stumbling all over the place. But that was only from the back. From the front, it looked very different. Very, very different. How different? How about if we just let Peter, the Frankfurter man, describe it for us? Peter took one look at that giant white sheet, stumbling, bumbling toward him, and ran never like before. You might think that somebody like Peter, who has probably had more than a few Frankfurters in his day, might be a little slow. You would be wrong. So the picture said, "Ghost!" When he saw that ghostly creature coming at him, Peter ran like the wind, like a hurricane wind. Like a hurricane wind combined with a tornado. Like a hurricane wind combined with a tornado that is being chased by a ghost. That's how fast he ran. By the time the dogs had stumbled and fallen over the Frankfurter cart, Peter was not even in sight. And by the time they had untangled themselves from the sheet, those 5 dogs had stopped worrying about Peter altogether. They knew he was long gone and probably was not coming back for a very long time. Poo Poo, Stripes, Mutt, and Karen snatched all the Frankfurters they could carry and sprinted off to the safety and comfort of Stick Dog's empty pipe. Stick Dog looked up at the maple tree just a few feet away from the cart. The 4 raccoons were situated on a lower branch. They looked hungry and disappointed. Stick Dog reached into the cart and grabbed a bunch of Frankfurters. He carried them to the maple tree, dropped them gently at the base of the trunk. That was nice. Returning to the cart, he snatched another bunch of Frankfurters and raced to catch up with Mutt, Karen, Stripes, and Poo Poo. When they all reached Stick Dog's pipe, they started to eat the Frankfurters. And they laughed and laughed at how they had scared Peter, the Frankfurter man, away. Here he is grabbing him. Excuse me. And they congratulate themselves on defeating the Frankfurter assault squadron. Between laughs and congratulations, they took more Frankfurter bites. And those Frankfurters, oh, those Frankfurters, they tasted so good. And Stick Dog's stomach was finally and happily silent. There's a little arrow saying quiet. So his stomach is finally not grumbling. The end. All right, first graders, it's actually exactly 9 o'clock here at my time, so I have to go to my Zoom meeting with the entire School of Brown. So all the teachers and support staff, we're all having a Zoom meeting on Tuesdays, so I gotta go. I hope you have a wonderful Tuesday. It's raining outside, so hopefully you found a good book or you have some good stuff to do inside. Maybe do some chores, I don't know. Probably some video games, I'm assuming, right? Hopefully you're working on your packets. A little bit of Dreambox, a little bit of Raz Kids. Stay tuned for a new book coming at you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.